What would humans look like after 1 million years on other planets? Imagine humans leave Earth tomorrow, not just to visit other planets, to stay. One group settles on Mars. Another finds a planet where gravity is twice as strong as Earth's. Another lives on a world almost completely covered in water. And then we leave them alone for 1 million years. When we finally bring them back together, they might not look like different groups of humans anymore. They might look like entirely different species. Because change the world, and eventually, you change the human living on it. Put humans on Mars for 1 million years, and one of the first things you'd notice might be their bodies. Mars has only about 38% of Earth's gravity. Every step would require less effort. Your body wouldn't need as much muscle to hold itself upright. Your skeleton wouldn't need to support the same weight. And over enough generations, assuming people actually reproduced and evolved there, rather than simply engineering themselves, Martian humans could become more lightly built, potentially taller, narrower, with less massive bones and muscles than us. But weak gravity isn't their only problem. Mars barely has an atmosphere compared with Earth, and its surface is bombarded with far more radiation. That creates an enormous evolutionary pressure. If natural biological adaptations could help at all, traits that better protect cells from radiation could become incredibly valuable. Perhaps more protective pigmentation, perhaps more efficient DNA repair, maybe changes we wouldn't even notice from the outside. And after 1 million years, imagine putting one of them beside you. Same ancestors, same original human body, but one built by Earth, and one shaped by Mars. And Mars was the easy one. Now do the opposite. Take another human population and put them somewhere gravity is much stronger than Earth's. Suddenly, everything about your body becomes expensive. Standing is harder, walking is harder, lifting your own arm takes more effort. Your heart has to work against stronger gravity to move blood around your body. A tall, lightly built human would have some serious disadvantages. So given the right evolutionary pressures over immense time, humans here might move in the opposite direction from our hypothetical Martians. Shorter bodies could become advantageous. Lower centers of gravity, thicker, stronger bones, more powerful muscles, a more compact frame. Not because evolution is deliberately trying to create some tiny superhuman, but because every generation is living in a world that's constantly pulling them down harder than Earth does. Even the cardiovascular system could face pressure to change. Hearts and blood vessels better suited to moving blood through a high-gravity body could have an advantage. After 1 million years, these humans might look strangely dense and compact beside us. And if one of them somehow visited Earth, their muscles and skeleton would suddenly be operating in much weaker gravity. Depending on exactly how they had adapted, Earth might feel unbelievably light. But there are worlds where the problem isn't how hard the ground pulls you down. It's that there barely is any ground at all. Imagine a planet almost completely covered in water. There are a few islands, maybe floating settlements. But generation after generation spends an enormous part of life swimming, diving, and gathering food underwater. At first, they're just humans who swim a lot. But evolution can work with surprisingly small advantages. We already have a real-world hint of this. Some human populations with long traditions of diving show physiological adaptations associated with repeated underwater foraging. Now give those pressures not hundreds or thousands of years, but 1 million. Bodies that use oxygen more efficiently during dives could have an advantage. The diving reflex could become stronger. Breath-holding ability could potentially become much greater. Bodies might become better suited to swimming. Perhaps limbs and body proportions gradually shift if those differences actually affect survival and reproduction. But this is where science fiction usually goes too far. They probably wouldn't suddenly grow gills. Evolution can only modify what already exists, and turning human lungs into functional fish-like gills would require an extraordinary series of changes. They'd still be descendants of air-breathing mammals, just mammals increasingly shaped by the ocean. Imagine seeing one emerge from the water after 1 million years. To us, they might look almost alien. To them, we might be the awkward land creatures, and at least their planet still has a normal day. The next humans don't get one. There are planets that could be tidally locked to their stars. One side permanently faces the star, the other permanently faces away. No sunrise, no sunset, one side trapped beneath eternal daylight, the other beneath eternal darkness. If humans could inhabit such a planet, One plausible place to settle might be somewhere between those extremes, in the permanent twilight zone. And now something we take completely for granted disappears: the 24-hour cycle created by Earth's rotation. Our biology is deeply tied to cycles of light and darkness. Sleep, hormones, body temperature, alertness, all synchronized in part by the world around us. But here, the sun could simply hang in roughly the same place in the sky, forever. Technology and social schedules could initially preserve an artificial day. But over immense evolutionary timescales, if natural light cycles no longer provided the same environmental signal, biology could change in ways that are difficult to predict. And populations living toward the darker side would face another pressure: very little natural light. Vision suited to dim environments could become more valuable. Different light sensitivities might be favored. Meanwhile, populations living closer to the bright side would face the opposite environment. Same planet, same original colonists. Yet, given enough isolation and different selective pressures, even humans living on opposite regions of one world could begin diverging. But we can make the environment stranger still, because what happens when humans settle somewhere that barely gives them any light at all? Imagine a wandering planet, a world drifting through interstellar space without orbiting a normal star. From the surface, there is no sun, only darkness. For humans to survive there at all, we'd need some extraordinary source of energy, perhaps geothermal energy beneath the surface, and probably enclosed or underground habitats. So this is already the most speculative colony on our list. But suppose humanity manages it, and then stays there for 1,000,000 years. Sunlight is no longer part of ordinary life. Inside dim artificial environments, eyesight could face completely different pressures. If vision remained important, greater sensitivity in low light could be useful. But if these humans increasingly relied on technology or other senses instead, vision might become less important. And that's the strange thing about evolution. There isn't a predetermined upgrade path. Large eyes aren't guaranteed. Better hearing isn't guaranteed. Pale skin isn't guaranteed. Evolution only favors traits that improve reproductive success in the environment that actually exists. So after 1,000,000 years underground, the result might be something we'd never predict from appearance alone. Changes in circadian biology, metabolism adapted to the available food and energy, different sensory priorities, bodies adapted to confined artificial environments rather than forests, plains, and sunlight. At this point, take our 5 populations and put them in one room. The tall, lightly built descendants of Mars, the compact descendants of the high-gravity world, the ocean-adapted population, the humans of permanent twilight, and the descendants of a world without a sun. All of them started as Homo sapiens. After 1,000,000 years of isolation, some populations might have diverged enough that calling all of them the same species becomes questionable. But there's one population we haven't checked: us. Leave humans on Earth for 1,000,000 years, and we wouldn't simply remain frozen in 2026. Homo sapiens has existed for only around 300,000 years. Go back roughly 1,000,000 years and you don't find modern civilization. You find earlier human relatives. So another 1,000,000 years is more than enough time for enormous change. But predicting what we'd become is almost impossible, because humans have done something unusual. We've started changing the environment faster than the environment changes us. Cold? We build heating. Poor eyesight? Glasses. Disease? Medicine. Food shortage? Agriculture and global supply systems. And now we're entering an era where we may increasingly alter our own biology. Gene editing, artificial organs, implants, embryo selection, perhaps technologies we haven't even imagined yet. So the future Earth human might not be shaped primarily by natural selection. We might increasingly shape ourselves. Maybe some populations choose genetic modifications, others don't. Maybe humans integrate more technology into their bodies. Maybe isolated populations eventually diverge. Or maybe global travel and interbreeding keep humanity genetically connected for far longer than we'd expect. There is no way to know, but there's an even stranger possibility. Imagine our Martian descendant finally returning to Earth after 1,000,000 years. The ocean human arrives. The high-gravity human arrives, and they all meet the thing that humanity became here. They look at one another, and none of them recognize themselves in the others. Yet every one of them can trace their ancestry back to the same small blue planet. To us. Evolution doesn't have a final version of a human being. We're just the version that exists right now.